Welcome to episode 180 of the Daniel Yoris podcast. Why dirty bulking is a bad idea. Let's go. Welcome back to the podcast. Thank you for being here as always. The goal of today's episode is to help you stay lean and mean and not fat and funky. I heard Mike Tyson say that in a press conference leading up to his what was supposed to be fight against Jake Paul, and Jake Paul was bulking up, and he said, oh, he's young and, whatever, stud, and he's supposed to be lean and mean, but he's over there just looking fat and funky, and I thought it was hilarious. Totally aside from the whole episode, I hope that fight doesn't happen because we don't need that clownery with someone who's aging and is giving so much to the sport, and we just don't need that. But anyways, dirty bulking, not a good idea for pretty much anyone. That's what we're going to talk about today. So the way that I'm going to frame this is this. First, I'll kind of talk about what it is, my personal experience with it and through it, and post it, and what I did, why I did it, and what I would do instead, and how to go forwards from there. So dirty bulking is essentially bulking in general is trying to gain weight, gain muscle more specifically, and dirty bulking means you're kind of doing it with a complete disregard for fat gain, which is what I would say is not a good idea. Now, it can definitely be fun. There is not zero merit to it. Like anything has, there's a time and a place for everything, pretty much. I just think that this is one of those things that's really worth skipping. Now, the advantage of today's world is we have so much information. We've always had books, and books are, long to read and sometimes boring and whatever, but we've got podcasts and so many sources of media and social media and all this stuff where you can learn from other people's mistakes. So here I am telling you I made this mistake, and I don't want you to make this same mistake. Dirty bulking, again, eating as much as you can, training hard, having fun, but no regards to gaining fat in the efforts to just get as big and strong as possible. And then ideally at some point after that, when you've finished it, you will then go into a cut and cut off all that excess body fat and be bigger than you were before. Now, many people just do that whole thing wrong, and then they just bulk up, cut down, and then when they cut down, they also lose all the muscle that they just built, and they end up right where they were. So that's one problem. But anyways, let's get into it. So that's what dirty bulking is. Now, that's exactly what I did, and to explain it, I'll take a little quick step back in time. So when COVID started, and there's nothing to do with COVID, but in the first couple months of COVID, the world was no one knew what was going on. We didn't know how long this was going to last. It was always just 2 more weeks, blah blah blah. And I was at home, and I wasn't working. I was totally and solely in person as a trainer. The gyms were closed and all that stuff, so couldn't really work. Sure, keeping in touch with clients and giving people workouts to do at home, whatever, but people don't have equipment, and so whatever. Not actually work. I had tons of time on my hands. I said, great, I'll just train a lot. And I trained twice a day, every single day, for basically 4 months in a row. It was awesome. It was very fun. Got in phenomenal shape, the best shape that I've ever been. I was strong, I was fast, I was lean, I was, all the stuff. And then, things opened up again, and I said, okay, I'm pretty lean and pretty strong now, and I want to start to gain some muscle. And so I did. And I was going at a good clip and lean bulking at that point. Then everything shut down again, and this time it shut down for even longer. And I wasn't at home. I had moved to a different place, and there's a lot more stuff going on, and I wasn't really training because I had to start working online and start figuring out the rest of my life. Can keep waiting for this to happen. Blah 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 blah. Didn't really train that much. Was still lean and in shape, but lost a lot of muscle because I just wasn't training, wasn't eating. And so once things opened up again, I said, okay. Now I just want to get I got pretty lean, pretty good at that previous to that. Now I just want to get big and huge. I want to hit some all-time PRs. And I said, maybe I can even do this in such a way. And this is where it got tricky for me as a quote unquote content creator, is maybe I can use this as an experience to show others. And I think I did, and maybe it helped some people. I'm not sure. Maybe I didn't make the most of it because I didn't video enough of it, and my skill as a content creator is not amazing in that sort of short form type of stuff. And certainly at that time, which was several years ago, I was like, hey, I can do this and then show people how I lose all this weight. So I did it. I gained like 30 pounds in the span of 6 months. Yes, it was about 30 pounds in 6 months, which is a lot. I was as heavy as I've ever been. I was as strong as I've ever been. I've never lifted as heavy as that. And, you know, my lifts felt great. I'll say this. It's actually more difficult to bulk up like that, where you're force feeding yourself. Like, you never feel hungry. You eat when it's time to eat, not because you feel hungry. And you're just eating for the sake of eating. Your stomach kind of hurts all the time. But, like, training feels amazing because you're so fueled up and you're so strong and you can, like, lift way more weights. Training feels phenomenal. Sleep feels good. Like, a lot of things feel good, but it is difficult because you got to just keep, like, forcing yourself to eat. But then anyways, I also gained like a bunch of fat. I didn't gain 30 pounds of muscle in 6 months. That's absurd. I don't know exactly how much of it was muscle and how much of it was fat, but a good portion of it was muscle. And then I subsequently lost basically all of that weight in the next 4 months, I think it was, after that, into April, from January. And I had like a side-by-side of my weight was basically the same as before I'd started the bulk, but I was like noticeably more muscular and whatever. So it was a successful thing. But I still regret it because of this. I didn't get that far ahead. It's been harder to stay leaner, to stay as lean as I was before that since then. Because here's how fat gain works. The fat cells, they increase in number and increase in size. And when you lose fat, the fat cells decrease in size, but don't decrease in number. So just use simple numbers. So you've got, 100 fat cells in your body and you're lean and you're, good. And they're whatever size unit 1. When you gain fat, you'll gain 150 fat cells or 50 more. So you have 150 fat cells, but they're size unit 2. So they're bigger and there's more of them. Then when you cut it all back down, you're still going to have 150 fat cells, but they're going to just be at a smaller size. So your shape might be the same, but this is part of the reason why once you gain weight or a significant amount of body fat, it makes it easier to do that again. And that's not a good thing. Like, you don't want to gain back fat again. So this is part of the many, many reasons, but part of like the yo-yo dieting of losing weight, gaining weight, losing weight, gaining weight. Every time you gain excess body fat, it makes it harder to keep it off and easier to come back on, which is not a good thing. So this is the number one reason, I think, why dirty bulking is a bad thing. Another reason is this. It's not good for your health. Being at that higher level of body fat percentage, I don't know what my body fat percentage was. It was for sure above 15. It was probably 20, close, maybe pushing 25. It's not healthy, plain and simple. Not healthy to be at that level of body fat. Another thing is that the only person that you're really impressing with like the PRs that you're hitting and whatever is you. And that's fine. And, you should do it for yourself and, compete against you and all that stuff. But like, when you really look back at it, I think like, okay, I hit, whatever numbers I hit in the gym that are not like impressive on the grand scheme of things on the world stage, but to me, they were good. I hit that, but I was like at a way heavier weight. So like now, well, like I'm injured right now, so fine. But I'm like at a way lighter weight now. And like pound for pound, I'm pretty well, I'm stronger than that now. And several years on, whatever. So this is where kind of keeping that long-term mindset really comes into play. Like the thing that's going to be most optimal for your health, most optimal for your performance, most optimal for your physique and the way that you look and your confidence and, et cetera, all the other intangibles that come with that is going to be staying lean. Now, not toothpick marathon runner lean, but like relatively lean, and you kind of like gain your way up over time and you slowly add muscle and size and strength for forever, but you stay pretty lean overall. So if I could go back, instead of doing what I did, and let me interject myself here for a second. It's easy for when you see people like myself who are a content creator, a fitness coach, or whatever, doing stuff and then saying, I regretted that, or hey, I did this, but like you shouldn't do that. Keep in mind that like this is our job. So we will experiment with stuff that even things that we might think is like not a good idea. There's tons of videos online about, I tried this stupid diet for a month and I ate a Big Mac every day for a month and I did this. And it's like, hey, I don't recommend this, but I'm just doing this to like prove a point or make an educational topic or make an entertaining video or just to experiment or something like that. So we can always then justify by like, hey, I don't really regret that because, you know, I learned something from it. Like I can justify my bulk as like it wasn't that bad because I learned something from it. I'm making this video about it now. Like there's all these things that we can justify. That doesn't make it a good reason for you, not a coach, not a content creator, to go ahead and do it just to experiment and like see what's out there. Obviously, do whatever you want and like, you know, it's a free country, like do your thing. But you know, you can learn from some of these lessons so that you don't have to make some of these mistakes. Another thing that is part of the reason why I did it, and then I can tell you what I wish I'd done instead. This is something that is not often spoken about, but I find it to be very true with myself and many other male clients, is that as a man, when you are very lean or trying to stay very lean for the most part, you have to accept that you will likely be much lighter on the scale than you want to be. And that's kind of the opposite of a lot of the discourse where it's like, oh, I want to see, you know, smaller numbers on the scale. I don't want to see big numbers on the scale. But like when you're a guy and you want to be big and strong and confident and whatever, and you don't want to look at the scale and see a pretty low number. You know, you were big and strong at 190, 220, you know, whatever, however heavy you were. And now to get down to 10% body fat, 15% body fat even, maybe you've got to lose 30, 40 pounds. And you're like, oh, you know, especially like there's these landmark numbers, right? If you're a guy who's like, I'm not that big, but if you're over 200 and to like get lean, you've got to get to like 190. There's going to be some mental hurdles there about being under 200. You're going to feel small. You're going to feel like, and now you don't walk around with your weight on your forehead. No one else knows this other than you. So it's kind of one of these weird psychological things that we humans experience, but it's a real thing. And so you have to just understand that it doesn't actually matter. Nobody gives a shit about your weight. They care about, you know, what you look like, and you should care about what you look like, your health, and your performance. So accept that you're probably going to have to be and stay a little bit lighter than you are, and that chasing a certain number on the scale, even in this other scenario where it's like, hey, I'm trying to be at least this big, but not bigger than that. I want to be above 200, but I don't want to be above 205. Like, give yourself a very small window, and you may very well get there, but you're better off getting lean first and then adding muscle slowly over time. So now going back, you know, the story's jumping around a little bit, but by the way, and last interjection, I promise, this is one of the reasons why like having a coach is so important. I know this video's coming out, or this episode will come out end of August-ish, which is basically when I'm recording it. We're getting into September. September is always like the second January of fitness time, right? It's after a summer of indulgence, of vacations, of fun, of social things, of, you know, beach parties and barbecues and whatever. In September, even though we're not going back to school, September is like back to routine, like let's get back into it. So this is the time to really double down as you head into the fall season, which we know is always really tough. Thanksgiving, Christmas, Halloween, all types of other celebrations are happening into and through the fall. So September is a great time to hire a coach, and I would love to coach you through that. So I'll be opening some spots up and talking about that more on my media. But if you are interested and you think that September is a great time for you and you want to finally get control of these things, make no mistakes, or make less mistakes, rather, learn from experiences of myself and through all of my other clients and everything else that I've learned, and then give it all to you so that all you have to do is execute, then send me a message and we'll get started on that. But anyways, what I wish I'd done instead. I was super lean before I started this whole bulk. I wish I had just gone back to that. I wish I had just gone in what would have felt like taking a backward step at that time, but been a massive forward step in the long run, was get back to regular training. And my training wouldn't really have changed. The training is not, it's just the eating. So I just need to eat as much, right? Like gyms opened up again and I was able to get back in a gym and, all that good stuff. Train hard again, get back into training, get strong, but eat at like basically maintenance level. Because I was still pretty lean. I was just like small in my eyes, lost a lot of muscle, but I was still lean. So I would have just gained, which is an episode that I've done before and something that I've talked about, where it's like, hey, you're basically going to eat at maintenance and just train really hard. And then with that, you will naturally kind of just recomp, where you're gaining a little bit of muscle and losing a little bit of fat at the same time. And it's pretty slow. It's not going to be big noticeable changes. You're not going to be posting any before and after pictures in a month and saying like, oh, I gained 6 pounds or I lost 6 pounds. Like, no, you may have a net change on the scale of actually 0, because gain 1 pound of muscle, lose 1 pound of fat, net change is 0. I'm no math genius, but I can figure that one out. That's what I wish I would have done instead, because that would have been the easiest way to do it. And also the best long-term approach. Now, another way that you could do it, and this is more difficult, I'd say, is starting, what people will call a lean bulk, which the purpose is the same, to gain muscle mass and gain size. Now, it's very, very difficult to eat in a surplus with the purposes of gaining muscle and not gain any fat. What you can do is minimize the amount of body fat you gain, but it's nearly impossible if you're above a beginner level of training to actually do that. But what you can do is minimize it. So you eat in a surplus, maybe it's like 200, maybe 300 calories, but pretty low, and maybe even up to 500. But 500 would be too much. I take that back. 200 to 300 calories-ish. And you got to see how your weight's moving and how your body's changing. But what you're looking for is an increase in weight of only about 0.5 pound per week, which is 2 pounds per month, which is not very much weight at all. That's not going to feel like a ton. It's not going to look like a ton, but it is happening. Muscle gain is very, very slow. I cannot stress that enough. Muscle gain is very, very slow. Even if you actually gained 2 pounds in a month and you're able to do that consistently, consider that's 24 pounds of muscle in a year. That's possible, but it's very difficult to do. It's very difficult to maintain that level of training, and it's very difficult to actually gain 24 pounds of muscle without gaining an additional fat. Especially if you're not, using performance-enhancing drugs. Performance-enhancing drugs, totally different story. You do that no problem in way faster time. But gaining 24 pounds of muscle in a year, gaining 2 pounds of muscle a month, that's like very, very impressive. And so you have to realize that if you're only gaining 2 pounds a month, not even all of that is muscle. Maybe even only 1 pound of that is muscle. And so you're only gaining 1 pound of muscle. You have to, just accept that muscle gain is very, very slow. So you can do this kind of lean bulk, and you got to stretch it out for a while, right? You don't do it for a month. That's not enough time. You maybe do it for 3 months, maybe even 6 months, where you gain anywhere from, 12 to 24 pounds overall. And then you kind of do like a little bit of a mini cut after that for a month or 2 months, where you lose the excess fat. Now, if you do it that way, you can certainly like add small but significant amounts of muscle over time without accruing too much fat, and never too much that you're like so far away from being able to do a little mini cut for a month or 6 weeks or maybe 2 months and kind of get rid of the excess that you've built up there. The challenge of this, again, is just that it's more difficult because you have to be like a little bit more precise with how much you're eating, because you need to eat more, but not that much more, which is why it's easy to default to the dirty bulk, because it's like, hey, I don't really got to track anything. I just know that I got to be eating like a fucking as much as I can, like all the time. Macros doesn't really matter because like I'm eating so much that I'm going to get enough protein in, and then I'm going to get lots of carbs in, and I'm going to grow. So you don't really have to track it. But when you're lean bulking, like you really do have to track it and kind of pay attention to what you're doing, because you want to be eating a certain amount, but not over that, to minimize fat gain, but also maximize your muscle gain. So that's what I would. I don't know if I would recommend that. I mean, it's a great strategy. It's just difficult. It's just difficult to pull off and do it well. So what I'd actually recommend, and again, what I would have done could I go back in time, is just go right back to that kind of like main gaining, basically eating at maintenance, train hard, and just live. And then from there, you're getting ready for a vacation, a wedding, an event, something. You can do a little 4-week, mini cuts where you might drop, 5 to 10 pounds if you're being really aggressive within a month. And then you just go right back to maintenance, and then you're at maintenance, and then you're just still there. And you might gain a couple pounds over time because you're adding muscle and you're adding a little bit of fat, but probably not really. You're just adding muscle, and it's very, very slow. And you're not really looking for these giant transformations, but given enough time, it will be a giant transformation. That's why I'm a big fan of the whole, like, get lean first. The strategy long-term is this: get lean first from wherever you are. Get down to your, like, between 10 and 15% body fat as a dude. Women, 20 to 25-ish. Get down there, and then just main gain for forever. Or gaintain. That's another way that I've heard this phrase, but I think main gain is a little better. One last thing to talk about. Not last thing, but another thing to hear. How to correct it if you have done a dirty bulk, like I have. And then, you get lean, but then you struggle to kind of stay lean, and it kind of comes back, and you're never really happy. And now you're just chasing like these big numbers that you hit when you were fat. And you in your head, you're like, I know that pound for pound I'm stronger, but like actually, like, 400 pounds is 400 pounds. Like, I can't lift that anymore. So like, well, how do I reconcile this? I don't care that, like, I can do more at a lighter weight. I just want to hit that biggest number ever again. I want to put more weight on the bar. How do you reconcile this? It's not easy. The first step is that you have to get lean again. That's number one. Get lean again and think about this whole process. Excuse me. Get lean again. Think about this whole process on a way longer time scale, right? Fitness is a now until forever game. You're only going to, hit your absolute maxes once when you're not youngest, but like probably for most people in your 20s and 30s. That's the time when you're going to hit all your, lifetime PRs and whatever. But this game lasts for forever, even after you hit your lifetime PRs, even after you're not, super shredded and, whatever anymore. You still have to have your body. And so you still have to have your health. So you have to remember that, yeah, you might be able to like lift a little bit more weight or like be a little bigger, command some more space and, feel bigger and puffy. It's not really worth it. Just not worth it for your health. So keep the long term in mind. That's number one. Number two, then you got to get lean. Get back to, again, your 10 to 15% or 20 to 25% for women, and stay there. And then you start your main gaining journey back again. And the way that I challenge it, even the way that I do it to myself, is like, can I hit those same numbers at this lighter weight? Unless you were at that very heavy weight and you were hitting like astronomical numbers in the gym, you probably can, right? For me, I know that right now, if I wasn't injured and whatever, I'd be very close, because I was very close before this most recent injury. But I was very close. And so then you play games like, okay, well, can I hit these same numbers in the gym, my all-time PRs, except I'm 30, 40 pounds lighter? Can I do that? Like, that's pretty cool. Like, and that's legit. Then you can be stronger, leaner, and look better and feel better overall. So that's the future steps. It's really simple. You get back to lean. You accept that fitness is a lifelong journey. You accept that this is a forever game, that keeping your health and your physique in mind, which they are intertwined, not physique for external validation, which matters for sure, but physique and health are intertwined, and then just slowly get stronger over time. So avoiding the temptation to do this and just to see what's going to happen, like it's tough. I get it. And I think that I'm not sure why this is, but I have some theories. But like this whole dirty bulking like problem, if you will, is seems to be less of an issue like with women. I don't see a lot of women online like going on a dirty bulk and then, oh, I got too fat. Like, and I think it's just because like in general, like with these kind of things, like girls just way less dumb than guys, and guys are just like, yeah, I'll just get fat as fuck and just lift a truck. Like, okay, that was kind of my attitude. I get it. I'm with you. I feel you, brother, but not a good idea. And I feel like women are way less likely to fall into that trap. So who knows why, but whatever it is that you're doing, and girls, if you have a reason why maybe you're not doing that or never thought about doing that, or never were tempted to do that, please share, because maybe it'll help some of us out. But yeah, you got to avoid it. It's tough. Now, I meant to record this episode a while ago, and so I made some notes. And in my notes here, I think that's all I have to say on why you shouldn't dirty bulk. And I think that this doesn't have to be like more deep than this. Like it's all there is to it. It's just not worth getting fat. Period. That's it. But I was looking through my notes, like just make sure I didn't have anything else to say. And I have in here, it says Gordian knot. And I know what that is, but I have no idea how that is related to this. So to finish this episode, I'm going to tell the story of the Gordian knot, and maybe it'll come to me why that's related to this. And if not, then, whatever, it's a great story. And then we'll call it there. But hopefully, I don't know, maybe it'll come to me. Well, let's see. I just wrote it, Gordian knot, question mark, question mark, question mark. Let's see. The Gordian knot. And I will preface by saying this is a story that has to do with Alexander the Great, who I claim is an ancestor of mine. He was born very close to the village in which my grandparents are from, in Greece. So I believe, whether it's true or not, it's not, most likely not, but I claim that I'm a descendant of Alexander the Great, at least from that same region and from that same place in the world. So Alexander. Previous to Alexander, there was a city, or like a small city, and it was called Phrygia, I believe, or something like that. They found themselves without a king. The king had died, and there was no successor, and whatever. And an oracle prophesied that the next man to drive into the city on an ox cart should be the king. How simple politics were at the time. It's maybe a great world, maybe, I don't know, who knows. This was what the oracle had said. Their oracle. Sure enough, within a couple days, a man named Gordius rolls into town on an ox cart, and they name him king. Now, to commemorate this, they tied his ox cart to like some sort of post in the town, and to commemorate this thing happening and his kingship and whatever. And it was a very elaborate knot, the Gordian knot, henceforth. And that's it. So that was the knot. Then many years after, King Gordius had passed, his descendants, whatever, it's many generations after, the knot still stood. And it was then prophesied that whoever could untie this knot would become the ruler of Persia. Many people had tried, many people had failed, no one was able to untie the knot. Alexander, in his conquest, through Asia Minor and into Persia, attempting to overthrow and eventually doing so, the Persian Empire, makes a detour to go to this city to attempt to untie the Gordian knot. And keep in mind, like, the times, right? This is 350 or so BC, like, oracles and prophecies and omens and these things like meant a lot, right? So Alexander rolls up to the knot, and people are watching, right? He is quite literally on the march, on the path, trying to take over the Persian Empire. And the prophecy around this knot is that whoever does so would be able to become the ruler of the Persian Empire. And so if he fails at this point, which is relatively early in the campaign, if he fails to untie the knot, like that's not a good look. The soldiers might not have as much faith. They might take it as a bad omen. We shouldn't proceed. We're all going to die. Who knows what's going to happen. So Alexander walks up to the knot, takes a look at it. Imagine the room. It's a dark room because they don't have lights. Even though it's during the day, they have some fire. People are lined up. Everyone has a sword. Everything probably smells bad. Very tense. No one's breathing. Everyone's holding their breath and watching in awe. Alexander looks at it, takes out his sword, cuts the knot in half. The knot is untied. The knot is broken. The cart is severed from the post. And he's undone the Gordian knot. And of course, he would later go on to eventually conquer all of Persia and more and all of that. And so the point of the story, or the main lesson of the story, is I guess a couple, and it's where you take the simplest approach to solve the problem. You can sit there and fiddle with the knot and try and do all this fanciness or whatever, or just cut it and it's done. It's untied. It's severed. Done. One is using brute force to get through things, right? Again, be fancy and finicky and whatever, or just cut it, get it over with. And those are kind of the two, main lessons or takeaways, or just thinking outside of the box, I guess, is another one, right? Where again, you think untie the knot, and you think you've got to, find a way, these ropes and these whatever they use to make this, or you could just cut it. You don't think about using a knife to untie a knot, but obviously it works, and you could. So that's the story of the Gordian knot. It's a great story, obviously, because of my ancestry, but also just because of the story. I really love the story and the biography of Alexander the Great, and I think that it is, if you are Greek, you should definitely know it and you should definitely read it. But I think that there's a lot to be learned about even just current traditions, cultures, impact on modern religions, even though they weren't really a thing even at Alexander's time, but the influence of his empire and his whole campaign and all the stuff that it had on the religions, on what is now modern geopolitics in those areas, and has since spread to the rest of the world. It's very interesting, and I think it's a very important thing to help understand a lot of why the way that things are, and a lot of interconnectedness between cultures and stuff like that in a very complex part of the world, and either way, it's just interesting and inspiring, and outside of all that. So that's the bit on Alexander the Gordian knot, and I still don't know how that relates to lean bulking. I mean, I guess it's the opposite, where it's the lean bulk is the blunt force of hey, just eat a lot and do it, but you shouldn't do that. But that's certainly not what I was thinking of. Anyways, let's wrap this up. Lean bulking, not a good idea. Coaching, September. Let's get it. It's time. Enough. Enough spinning your wheels in circles. I can't. It hurts me when I tell people, when I meet people, either people that I know or people that I don't know who are new to me, and I meet them and say, "Oh, I'm a personal trainer. I have a podcast. I'm an online coach. I do all these things." And always it's "Oh yeah, I gotta get back in the gym. It's been a few years. I got 10, 15 pounds to lose." And in my head, I'm obviously being nice and whatever. I don't think this, I don't say this out loud, really. But it's if you want those things, if you want to get back in the gym, you want to lose those 10 pounds, you want to feel better, your knee hurts and you want it to stop hurting, your shoulder hurts and you know that you need to, strengthen it to make it feel better. Fucking let's go. Let's do it. Enough spinning your wheels and wishing and wanting and praying and hoping. Those things are all great. It's all fine. But you got to do stuff. And so if you're not going to do it on your own, you need to hire a coach. You need accountability. You need structure. And that's what I can provide. So let's get it. No more messing around. Let's get it. Send me a message. Send me an email. Hit me on Instagram, Twitter, whatever. And let's get it going. And if you won't do that, at least give a 5-star review to the podcast. Write a review. Subscribe on YouTube, on Instagram, on Apple, on Spotify. Leave a review. Helps a lot. Helps the show grow. Helps more people not lean bulk and stay lean and mean instead of being fat and funky. Appreciate you very much. See you next time. Go outside. Be a good person.